One thing that isn't always addressed about the last election is the really poor Labor advertising. Andrew Hirst and the Liberal Party's advertising was right on the money. The bill you can't afford and so on was so effective. I'm not so convinced about it won't be easy under Albanese. It doesn't sort of have that same potency as the bill you can't afford. And Labor's campaign last time just was like a wet lettuce.
Yeah, before I talk about this current campaign, talk me through some of that. I remember there was Bill Shorten and several other front benches in ads. So I didn't feel like they could have just Shorten out there alone. Is that one of the things you're thinking about?
There was that, but also the whole notion about Malcolm Turnbull being the top end of town. They didn't pivot to deal with Scott Morrison. He's not the top end of town.
Well, they were going on the same theme.
Similar themes.
Chalmers used to say that. Jim Chalmers,
it was similar themes, and it was really they hadn't identified his weak spots yet. 4 years later, it's a very different story for Scott Morrison.
Yeah, well, I guess
we see how good the ads are for Labor.
I guess time in government, you give them a bit more material. So I think so far, at least, Labor has won the advertising battle of this campaign. And again, I point out we have a little over a week to go. After more than 3 years as PM, the controversy over Scott Morrison's handling of the fires, his handling of the vaccine rollout, Labor had more to hit Scott Morrison with. There is also a lot of controversy over their use of the term "it's not my job" in one of these ads I'm about to play, when these quotes are clearly out of context. And that is pretty dishonest. But I don't think there is any doubt Morrison has deferred to the states many times during crises, and the ad seeks to play on that reality. The other thing I copped at every door in Swan and Blair in particular was the cost of living issue. So Labor are seeking to blame Morrison for that, even though it's a worldwide phenomenon. There's no doubt unemployment is a government killer. I've been saying that for a couple of years, but inflation can be as well, as illustrated in the 1970s and 80s. Here are those Labor ads.
Going to Hawaii when half of Australia was burning was a mistake.
I don't hold a hose, mate.
Not making sure we had enough vaccines and rapid tests was a mistake.
It's not a race, it's not a competition.
No one gets it right all the time, but Morrison makes too many mistakes. Next time something goes wrong, do you trust him to make it right?
That's not my job. That's not my job. It's not my job to do that.
Authorised by P. Erickson, Australian Labor Party, Canberra.
Seen the price of a lettuce lately? Not a fancy pants minuetti one. An iceberg. Morrison says things are great. We're doing fine. Has he been to the shops?
It's not my job to do that.
Authorised P. Erickson, Australian Labor Party.
Gosh, they left nothing in the locker on those, did they? Well, in terms of the Liberal advertisements, we have seen Albanese gaffes in some ads digitally, but not in the ones on TV. There's not a hell of a lot we've seen either on mismanagement in Labor's last term in office or a Don't Risk Labor campaign. You could throw in all the boats arriving with asylum seekers for a start. I assume all these themes have been tested. Just a bit surprised they haven't run. Later in the program, Kieran will talk to an advertising guru on this, and maybe he can shed some light on the theory on both sides and the competence of the ad campaigns on both sides. But surely the coalition could have come up with a better scare campaign than the ads they are running. Talking about a leaky bucket in terms of a budget situation when we have 4 deficits facing us, for instance, I'm not sure that was the best approach. Have a look.
Mr Albanese wanted big taxes on retirees and housing, now pretends he doesn't. He tells Melbourne he opposes coal, but tells Queensland he supports it. When Australia needs certainty, it won't be easy under Albanese. Authorised by Ahurst Liberal, Canberra.
There's a hole in your budget, dear Labor, dear Labor.
Labor hasn't balanced a budget in over 30 years. And the COVID response would have cost an extra $81 billion. Labor didn't even cost their health policy and can't say how they'd fund billions of extra spending in their platform. And that means...
More taxes are coming, more taxes, more taxes. There's a hole in your budget, dear Labor, a hole.
It won't be easy under Albanese. Authorised by Ahurst Liberal, Canberra.
There's still a week and a half to come up with more effective ads, I guess, and a Liberal launch on Sunday to reset things and attempt to create momentum in the last week. But hundreds of thousands of Australians are voting now. And as the political editor of The Australian, Simon Benson, noted this morning, Scott Morrison has his work cut out where the situation is now. I think in my next spot, Kieran, I'll pull out some of those ads from the last campaign. We can have a look at them in response before you talk to that expert.